It's the phrase that pays. That's right. You're swimming in it, guys. I feel like we were just here. It's deja vu all over again. If you're seeing me, Stone Cold, and Monsignor Mike Manley, the new Pope of the United States or the world, or however that works, it must be Wednesday.
You're all sinners.
All of y'all sinners. That's very Philly. All y'all sinners. It must be Wednesday. It must be 8 p.m. EST. It must be Pitch Me, I Must Be Dreaming time. It's not clobbered time. It's Pitch Me, I Must Be Dreaming time. Pencil to Pencil is returned. Guys, I'm so excited to bring you this fine program. I'm your first host. My name is JAMAR NICHOLAS. I wear many hats besides this white bucket hat. I am on the board of the National Cartoonist Society. There's lots of exciting things happening. It's almost Rubens time. No sandwich jokes, so you get kicked out the chat. I am also the chapter chair of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Yes, the whole city. And also, I'm a graphic novelist. I have a series at Scholastic underneath the graphics imprint called Leon Extraordinary. Worst Friends Forever. My newest volume is in stores now. Tell them, Steve, cop it. Why don't you? Guys, I would be remiss. I would be in remission if I did not introduce. He's coming back for the belt. He's in contention. He was walking that highway, but he's back for his title. Soon to be the world heavyweight champion of webcomics once again. By God, it's Stone Cold Steve Conley.
Gentlemen, it is so good to see you. My name is Steve Conley. I'm the writer, artist, and chief shill operator, the salesman, the traveling salesman of The Middle Age, a webcomic which you can read at Webtoons, Tapas, Go Comics, and my own website, steveconley.com. I also make the stuff for the Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a card-carrying member of the National Cartoonist Society. Go Birds. Go Birds.
Go Birds.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Pope of Penciling, the Pontiff of Penciliers, the Golden Doodler, Mr. Mike Manley.
Hello, everyone. I'm also currently a card-carrying member, but I don't have my card on me, so you'll just have to take the member of the National Cartoonist Society, but you'll just have to take my word for it. Maybe the dent on my finger.
There you go.
My little dent. My dent.
There's your ID.
It unlocks the lounge. It's a key.
Yes,
The
Yes.
skeleton key.
That's right. Yes, right. Just like a relic, just like the relic of a saint. I have the sainted, dented finger of a career cartoonist.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yeah, you know, that's something that people don't really talk about is your kind of your war injuries, or just like the repetitive things. Like I have, like one of my fingers is crooked now. Like this finger right here, it's like it's very slight, but it doesn't go down. It doesn't go up all the way anymore.
Oh, really? You getting a
Yeah.
trigger finger? That's what they call trigger finger.
Yeah, but there's no pain or anything in it, but it's
You're really the Lone Ranger, aren't you?
very Philadelphian of me. I can't even get that right. But so did you ever? And this is something that a lot of Muggles may ask. Does your hand get tired? Pause. At what point, for both of you?
What are you talking about? Does my hand get tired? No, it's fine.
Yeah, fine.
At what point have you had, to maybe seek medical attention for like what's it, a RSI, a repetitive stress injury, or any type of, do you do any exercises or anything like that?
From yelling at the TV or
for drawing, Mike Manley?
I've never had any issue with drawing. I've thrown my back out once or twice, but not in a long time. But no, nothing with my, knock on wood, nothing with my hands or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I ended up with carpal tunnel on one side. I shot a cortisol in there a while back, and it's been a lot better. And then I think I might have mentioned golfer's elbow. Yeah. From just constant drawing, and so there's some stretches I do, and that seems to take care. It's mostly belt activity. And then I'm fine.
It's letting out your stretch pants.
That's right. That's right. You just unloosen that knot a little bit.
How about you, Jamar?
No, you know what? I have. It's interesting for a lot of the people that draw digitally. Everybody has those little half gloves with the pinky in and all that kind of stuff. I don't really use that stuff. It's just weird to me. But I do have. What are you about to put? I put on as MMA gloves. There you go. There you go.
I have it, but I never wear it.
Yeah. I do have a wrap that, it wasn't medically cleared. Like the PA Athletic Commission did not clear this, but I have kind of like a wrap that you can't. I did it wrong, so can't take me anywhere. Kind of like that you kind of like wear to kind of take some of the pressure off of this little thummy wristy part. But I also read that it's not. I'm not supposed to wear it during the day. I'm supposed to wear it when I'm sleeping.
What? But you're.
When Mike goes, what? Like it's not helping you, right?
You're drawing when you sleep.
Yeah.
When you're sleep drawing.
Helping you, yeah. Binding your hand like a kung fu master when you're sleeping. How does that help your?
I think it's just supposed to be like you're in rest mode, not necessarily it's helping you. So yeah, America's Tom Zoller. America, this is you. Says it's like being a pitcher. I'm trained to be able to do this for a long time. Yeah, it's funny. Like when I'm at some sort of event and I'm signing like a cajillion books, and somebody always goes up and says, "Does your hand hurt?"
I wrap it in dollars, madame.
No, that's the best part. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think you do build up almost like a scar tissue to drawing for long periods of time.
I think because I spent most of my career not drawing on a tablet. I've only been drawing on a tablet. What?
It's interesting.
5 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of got to it a little later than a lot of people.
Yeah, and I know because of all the other people I know who work on tablets, who constantly have drawing problems. I have my situation arranged so that I am not putting any stress on I don't have my board elevated.
Right.
So I'm not like up over doing this, right? Like you
Right.
see, most people are up over and they're doing this. And if you're doing that, and we're all drawing in an area about that big, right? About that big, right? Maybe your stylus, no matter how big your pad is, you're drawing in an area about that big.
Mm-hmm.
If you're drawing comics, you're little, maybe occasionally you're filling a big area, but 9 times out of 10, you're working very small.
Mm-hmm.
That will give you carpal tunnel. Any repetitive small muscle movement will give you, eventually will give you carpal tunnel. I don't care if you're 15 or 16, by the time you're in your 20s, and all the young people I know have problems with their hands. They've been working with Mimi and Liang. I've known them, I know Liang the longest, my assistant, since she was in high school, which is over 10 years now, I think. Sometimes her hand bothers her. It's just, drawing comics on paper, you're always moving. You're moving the board, you're turning the piece of paper, you're drawing more with your arm than necessarily with your hand. It's not just a little. So, I think the less you draw digitally, the better off you are in the long run. Don't only just work that way.
That's a
shots fired.
That's some spicy talk right there. Especially like everything's so digital, and even thinking about, like, I don't know if there's like, is there swiper's finger? Is there something like there's got?
I had a friend now. We hold our phone like this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a good close friend of mine who saw his doctor and said he was having numbness from the elbow up. The doctor said it's from this, this, and then there's this, and your elbow is resting on your chair. It's pinching a nerve that goes through your elbow, right? Yeah. So the human body was not these things are not ergonomic, right? It's a square, right? And we're not squares.
Speak for yourself, Mike.
Yeah, you're square, Jamar.
I'm a total square, yeah.
And all of our bodies are not designed to sit 18 hours a day.
I come from a long line of sitters, Mike. I come from like sitting runs deep in the Conley line. I think
nobody's mom of our generation sat in a chair all day, right? They were doing a whole housework and cooking and cleaning and
chased by saber-toothed tigers.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody was doing that, so it's just
punching Nazis.
And I do know the most common ailment, I think, of artists is the bad back. The compression of your spine. That's why everybody tries to buy the expensive chair, so your spine is like this. You're not like
you get one of them championship belts.
Yeah, that'll straighten your spine out.
And if you get a belly on you, and you're not working out, and you don't strengthen your core, the stomach actually pulls your spine out of alignment.
Yeah, spine and dandy. There was this guy at my old job that had a bad back, and I would always seem to catch him when he came back from like an appointment. And one time he had this sticker on his jacket. It was like a flamingo, and I was like, "What? What's that say on your jacket?" And he held it up, and it said "Spine and Dandy" on it. Like there were special stickers that his backologist was giving out.
From Dr. Nick.
Hi, everybody. That's so great. So let's get this show started, and maybe we can talk more about art pain as we go through the evening. Guys, go ahead. See,
pencil to pencil bingo. It's going to be like mention back pain, mention a zip disc. It's going to be all
right.
Facsimile machine.
Is your left leg numb after sitting for half an hour?
And drawing childhoods. Yeah, it would fill that big old card out. I love it. Guys, I'm really excited tonight because we have a good buddy waiting in the green room, eating
Got scared and left.
Eat all the Chex Mix. I hope not. Tonight, you guys, we're going to hang out with Rich Woodall. Rich is, well, kind of like, I don't know, the Force or the Matrix of leadership or something like that. Everybody's kind of connected in an interesting way. And before we got started, Rich and the rest of us were kind of catching up. And Rich was connecting a lot of dots that I didn't even know about. So, you know, to say that cartoonists and cartooning is kind of a fraternity in a way, not like, you know, not like red cups on the lawn type of fraternity, but like there's something very.
I've held your dreads back many nights. You're the Genesee cream ale just coming right back up.
I'll share a very special bond, and tonight we get to share that with you and our good buddy Rich Woodall. So let me clear my screen. We're gonna have a good chat, and hold on before my ADHD wears off. Let me get this out. All right, guys, prepare for rendering. Let's bring in Rich Woodall. We really need a soundboard. We really need a soundboard. All right,
it wouldn't be the same if you had a soundboard.
Hey, Rich, how are you, sir?
I am doing excellent. How are you guys?
Good, man. People were excited to see you tonight. Look at that.
Well, at least JRD.
The rest of the chat is empty. It's just JRD. Like,
maybe if,
computers.
Yeah, maybe if the Ringos show up, we'll see.
Yeah, there you go. So I guess we could just start with the question. I always start off with some pithy banter. Hey, Roger.
Hey, Roger.
So, Rich, in your long time in the chair, have you incurred any injuries or any type of like lumps on your bones and shit like that?
Have you gotten any lumps? Have you felt any strange lumps on your body?
Show me where the comics hurt you.
Yeah, yo, that's a shirt. That's a
show
t-shirt.
me on this long box where the comics hurt you.
That's right. I mean, I've got the wrist things that like comes and goes. A lot of it's when I'm doing the digital, working on the Cintiq. If I'm doing that for day after day after day, then yeah, I get the arm thing, and then the back like everybody else has. But yeah, I've been working like a regular seated day job since I was 16. So yeah, it's the back was the worst, and the wrist kind of comes and goes.
When you have a outside of the house creative job, like when I was a younger JAMAR, I was very jealous of, as I had some friends who were like in design, you know, like this one of my buddies in Texas worked at this very sexy place, and they had a kitchen, Rich, with like just like snacks in it.
Sure.
And he would just sit at the desk and just like create graphics or whatever all day. And I was like, man, that must be a dope job. But he was like, yo, you have no idea how horrible this is. And like one of the things I always notice is that there's a lot of hunching. There's a lot of kind of stressors coming at you from every direction.
Yeah.
And also like a good pair of headphones, I think, are in order.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the first job, the job I got at 16, I worked for Fruit of the Loom Sports and Licensing Division.
Oh, wow.
So I was in a studio. I didn't go to college, but I was in a studio with about 30 other illustrators. And that was amazing. I was just a sponge, just absorbing off of everybody. That was a great job. I designed t-shirts for the NFL, all the sports, got to work on Looney Tunes and stuff. And then, then I transitioned over to other shirts, South Park and Dr. Seuss and stuff like that. But after that, I got a job doing web design, and that was very much, you're in your cubicle, you got your headphones on like everybody else does. It's kind of creative. Back then it was creative. It's not so creative anymore, but yeah, so it was 20 years of web design stuff. So that was, but it was cool to work in I miss working in a studio with other creatives. Like, you know, I'm home alone. I talk to Craig Russo all day.
I'm sorry.
I know. I'm sorry for him.
I'm sorry for your loss.
But yeah, like, you know, we have this kind of thing.
Yeah.
We see each other at shows, and then, you know, we talk on G Talk or whatever it is now. And yeah. So I miss that studio environment. That was a lot of fun.
What do you see? This is interesting, and this is why I love the origin story and just kind of like backtracking in the career. What kind of takeaways do you think you got from working in that kind of studio environment, especially that young?
Yeah. Oh, it was. I mean, I went in. I learned so many lessons. What I had one art director. You know, again, I'm like 16, 17.
Yeah.
And I'm doing designs for this guy, and nothing's hitting. Like, it's just not. And I kind of went up to him. I'm like, I can't do this. Like, whatever you're looking for, I can't do. And he just took me aside and he goes, if you ever tell me you can't again, I'm going to fire you. He's like, you may struggle, you may have a hard time with it, but we will work together and we will get this done. Don't ever say can't. That's awesome. That was the last time I ever said can't. Like, it was such a, you know, a good early lesson. But you know,
I got goosebumps from that. That's
right. Yeah. It was such like an epiphany for me. But just like work ethic, you know, I'd have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get to work. You work at that point it was a regular 8-hour day. When I transitioned to doing the Dr. Seuss and South Park t-shirts and stuff, the day I got the job, my best friend was the art director. He got me there. I get into the office, and there was a box on top of a box. The box on top was my computer. The box on bottom was my desk. He said, put your desk together, get the computer hooked up. We got a long day. And I didn't get home until like 11 o'clock that night. And I felt so bad. I walk in and my wife is like crying on the stairs. Like, we had moved from New England to Baltimore, or to Columbia, Maryland. And we didn't have any food in the house. And she's home alone all day long. We didn't have a phone hooked up yet. This is back when you don't have cell phones. Yeah. So, but like learning in all these, and especially going to the web stuff, you know, I've learned a lot of the business side of things, which, you know, you guys talk about all the time. And that was very, very helpful for me to kind of learn all that stuff.
Wow. Yeah, I don't want to get caught up in this because I love these kind of stories. But I don't want to keep asking you questions about working at that place. But maybe to give us a small origin story thing, what was the road that took you into comics? Yeah,
so I was 13. I moved around a lot as a kid. My stepdad worked for Walmart. And so we were moving once a year, every year for like 10 years. And so we moved to this little town in Arkansas, and I'd always had kind of comics around me. My grandmother always bought me comics and stuff. But I wasn't like super into it. And I went to the little 7-Eleven, took my little Huffy bike, rode to the 7-Eleven, and there was Classic X-Men 17, and it's a John Bogdanove cover. Like, Wolverine is like naked basically on the cover. There's circus posters in the background. It was the issue where the Beast went to the circus to find the X-Men because they had disappeared or whatever. So on the inside it's John Byrne, and I just instantly fell in love. And after I read it, I'm like, this is what I want to do with my life. And yeah, that really started it all. I was hooked. I was a Marvel zombie after that.
Was your family supportive of the idea of you becoming an artist?
Kinda. Like, they weren't not supportive.
That's good.
I basically, like, I was a horrible student. I failed art in my senior year just because I wanted to do comics. I didn't want to learn how to paint. I didn't want to learn how to do sculpture or anything. I just wanted to do comics. That's all I wanted to do. So I failed high school art. And then of course, like the first thing that I learned when I'm in that studio environment is one of my good buddies did watercolor, and he's like, look at this. You got Alex Ross doing, Marvels, because that was just starting to come out. He's like, you can learn how to do watercolor. You can apply it to comics, idiot. So after that, another light bulb went off. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have, I could do oil. I'm looking at Steve Rude doing Nexus, like the paintings for the Nexus covers and stuff. And yeah, my world opened up, and I learned all the stuff that I should have learned in high school, long after.
Well, that was just a bad teacher, because
I
had a teacher in high school. Well, I had, as we've talked about before, I had two classes. There was the vocational classes, like many high schools used to have.
Yeah. And
one of them was commercial art and printing. And then you had the fine art classes that, were basically the jerk off classes for everybody.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Right. So the teacher who ran the jerk off classes for everybody, first day saw that I liked to do comics, and then in fact, the first day in class, she goes, "Oh, you're one of those artists."
Yeah.
Right. So that seems to be a common story, that generation of teachers really didn't like comics.
Right.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
And what they could have done, what I took from that now as being a teacher, is I don't try to knock somebody for what they like. What I try to do is lead them, if I can, and they're willing, lead them to other stuff.
Yes.
They can like their whatever. But if you knock the person, then she lost an opportunity to actually teach you.
Yeah.
You know? So you end up learning it, and maybe learning it on your own at that point, because your brain is bursting and everything, and you're still growing. You're also being very serious because it's your job. Right. So you're in a job that's creative, and then you're presented these other possibilities, and you're open to it.
Yeah.
Instead of being slapped down.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
Did you have any other kind of I don't want to say maybe mentors, or maybe did you have any people that were in the business that you kind of glommed onto early that kind of helped guide you into the slipstream?
Yeah, at still doing t-shirts, this guy Tony Ritter, he could do pretty much everything. He was a jack of all trades, and he was my best friend. I was trying to be him so badly, and I just absorbed everything he did. But one of the things we had to do for t-shirts, so we worked on, like I said, Dr. Seuss, but we also worked on Peanuts. And this is while Schultz was still alive. So we had to learn how to draw like Schultz. And you guys probably know this. Like, he didn't have like a smooth line. It was like he drew it twice. And we had to learn how to do that, because we had to send everything into licensing, and they're looking for that shaky line. And so kind of through learning how to draw like him, or learning how to draw like Dr. Seuss, I started being able to mimic other things, and that was a huge learning experience, and pretty cool. But soon after, like in the comic world, I in high school, and actually Mike probably does not remember this. I don't think I've ever told him this. He was one of the first guys that was nice to me.
Uh-oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wait, Mike Manley? No.
Yeah. Living in New Hampshire, we had a comic artist. I don't want to name him. Yeah. He came into our school, and to be fair, I wanted to be Jim Lee so bad. Like, this is This is 1993, 1994.
Right, you're right in the heat of it.
Yes, I wanted to be Jim Lee and McFarlane, like, you know, that's all I wanted. And this comic artist was a guy who worked at DC on Star Trek. He didn't have much style to what he did. It felt very house style-y, but it was more realistic and stuff. And he hated my stuff and had no encouragement for me. And then after he came and talked to our class, I saw him at the Philadelphia show in '94. And that
was at the Civic Center, right?
Yeah. And he looked up at me and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Yeah." And see, I walked over and you weren't too far away. I didn't know you. I knew Dark Hawk, and I liked your work, but I didn't know you. I'd never met you. And I started talking to, just looking through your pages and stuff, and started talking to you. And you were very encouraging and very nice to me. And I think you looked through my portfolio, and we just chatted for a while. But it was a nice juxtaposition to you know, this guy that I had met a couple times and just was rude and everything. And then meeting Mike was a nice, pleasant experience.
Well, I'm glad that I also was not mean to you. Sent you back to the 7-Eleven to look for more naked, hairy men.
No.
For inspiration, you know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's so funny.
Was that Comic Fest in Philadelphia?
It was. So. I still have my badge. Take it up on my wall.
Were all four of us there?
We might have been. Yeah,
that's fantastic. I love that.
That is kind of awesome.
But later they would be reunited to fight evil.
I think
we'll come back to that moment.
I think that was my very first comic book convention.
Was it really?
Was I mean to you?
I think I met you. I may have met you there, but no, you weren't mean to me.
I always think it's important, really, to not be mean. I know that there's other. I remember the first big Chicago con I went to. And I saw John Byrne and Chris Claremont, and it was like some panel. And, you know, fans young people ask sometimes silly questions. Mm-hmm. That kind of goes with the territory of being young, right? Yeah. You want to ask some question that probably the guys, where do your ideas come from or whatever, right? Yeah. And they were, especially I remember John Byrne being very dismissive of this. You could see like he was sort of, really? You're going to ask me how many hairs are on Wolverine's arm or something like that, right? And that really pissed me off. It really pissed me off. I never like to see, unless the fan is like super annoying and like going beyond, you know, being polite or something. I really think there's this weird thing that happens with some guys when you're on the other side of the table. It goes through their head a little bit too much. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because at that con, I believe it was that con, was the first time I met Jack Kirby. Now, if there was a guy that could have shit talked anybody in the universe, right, with impunity, it would have been that guy. And he was the nicest guy you ever want to meet, right? And there's guys in the same con who don't have a tenth of the talent of that guy, and they, you know, they're all puffed up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's real. It just that show is really kind of stuck in my head because I guess I'm in that same conversation. It's so funny how all these roads converge. Yeah. Right. Because I think it was my first show. I was just like, holy crap, comics were hot. They were hot.
They had billboards in the city for that con.
It was right. And I think right after that show, they knocked the building down.
Yeah. Right. That was it. That was it. Yeah.
Can't get any better than this. Let's tear it down.
Yeah. I remember they had ads for that show.
Yeah.
And I think they even had radio spots, if I'm correct, for that. That's how big comics were.
Yeah.
They'd actually spend money to put a billboard in like I-95.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And there would be local radio spots. Now, no, they don't.
No, you
Comics
can't.
are actually, because of the movies, bigger,
Mhm.
right? But they don't spend any money on that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So-
I think I met Paul Chadwick at that show when he was super new.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. The thing that when I met Paul, I looked at his pages and I saw he was using Sharpie, and some of the pages were like green.
Really?
And I was just like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?"
So, Rich, when you got to that show, were you already trying to like break in, or were you just like doing recon?
So kind of like Philly, Boston has a good little family together, and I hooked up with this guy Saeed Dabinga, and he ran a very small publishing company that maybe lasted 2 or 3 years called Red Mercenary, and it was me and Rob Stahl. Yes, and maybe Mark Morales, but so I was like 16, but I had a car, and nobody that lived in the city had a car, so I would go pick up Cy and Rob, and then go down to New York and pick up Mark, and then go down to Philly. So I'm driving like all over the place, but I think I had done one pinup for Saeed, but he was so nice to me and kind of took me under his wing and introduced me to all these people, and took me to cons and got me into shows and stuff. I don't think I didn't set up at that show.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were all there just to kind of schmooze and rub elbows and stuff. So, but yeah, that was fantastic. So good.
When you were thinking about when you got that X-Men comic,
yeah,
were you thinking, oh, I want to do this? Were you thinking, I want to do X-Men? Or were you thinking,
absolutely. Okay. I mean, 100%. The X-Men was my favorite. I was and I've told this on so many other places, I was so confused by the classic versus the regular. I didn't understand it was reprints. Right. So I go back like a day later and I picked up whatever Uncanny was, and it was Rick Leonardi doing like a fill-in. And it was a really weird issue anyway. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, there's Wolverine, but he's not, like, he's in a different costume. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's not connecting to this other story. So it took me a couple months to figure out, my dumb kid mind, like, that these are older books. And now
that's how kids bought comics, though. I mean, for most of the history of comics, that's how people bought comics. You get this one issue of Superman, then you get another one, like, has nothing to do with the one that you just got.
Yeah.
Or I remember we would go, growing up in Detroit, we would go to Canada often to go to the beaches and stuff for vacation. And there was a store at the one place we went in Ippawash Beach. And they had comics that I could not get down the street from where I went. Yeah. Right. Number one, the place down the street where I went, all the covers are ripped. Right. There stuff was fresh. Right. Yeah. And then I also got these little British reprint comics, war comics.
Yeah.
Stuff like that I couldn't get. So that's how random it was. You would get an issue of Cartoons magazine, you get an issue of Mad magazine. You might get an issue of Spider-Man, but it's Marvel Tales, not
right. Yeah,
right. Yeah. And that's how kids always bought comics. You got whatever you got, and then it's like, oh, I wonder what happens. Maybe you don't get the next issue.
Right. And if you're lucky, you got a buddy that has a stack that you can go through and trade, and yeah.
So I think that's why, even if it was a part 1 of 3, all the comics in that era, which is something that we've lost now, you could enjoy that one issue of Spider-Man.
That self-contained story,
And now you can't enjoy the one issue of anything.
No.
That's a big, probably to me, one of the biggest differences. Also, in the fact that it was pretty cheap compared to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Mom would give me like $5. Like that means I think comics were like 75 cents at that point. So I get at least 6 comics. But the kind of to your point, like when I would read something and it had the asterisk and it would be like, oh yeah, this, as told in issue 17 of whatever, then I'd have to wait for years before I could find out what actually happened in issue 17.
That's awesome.
That is super awesome. So I guess my next question for you is to just kind of like hop a little further ahead in the timeline. What was kind of like your first real kind of toe dip into the business? Were you doing like some backups for people, or did you start self-publishing? So what kind of got you in the door?
Or when did you start actually making pages?
Yeah.
Right. There's that step of like, oh, I want to do this.
Right.
Yes.
And then just drawing pictures.
Yeah.
And then there's okay, now I actually need to try to make a page.
Yes. Yeah, I was doing what I thought were sample pages that were just, again, me trying to be Jim Lee, probably doing Wildcats, maybe some Cyber Force in there, mixing it up. A
lot of grit and teeth.
A lot of grit and and
pocket pouches.
Yes. And hooking up with the Red Mercenary guy. There was another guy that was working for him, and he ended up doing his own book. And one day he calls me up and he's like, "Hey, I've got like 8 pages in the back of my book that need to be filled. Do you have any interest in doing a backup?" And I'm like, "Well, like, is it a backup of your story? Like, what?" He's like, "You can do whatever you want." And so I said yes. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And that's when I came up with Johnny Raygun, because I think I was probably watching like Flash Gordon at the time, the serialized stuff. And I wanted to do something kind of retro space, but I wanted to make it a little bit modern. And so I did an 8-page, really, really horrible story, because I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know about pacing. I didn't know anything. I think I half inked it, and I had a buddy of mine that I worked with. He inked it and lettered it. And
by hand?
Yeah. This was all way before digital. But it was horrible because my buddy, he used to work for Deke Animation. He did a lot of the character design for the real Ghostbusters. Like he did the Boogeyman.
I love it.
He designed a lot of characters. So he was good friends with Sean McManus and had inked Sean over a bunch of stuff. And so he was really good with a brush. I had no talent with a brush at all. I was using those horrible refillable rapidographs that I would screw up every. You
have to draw.
Horrible. I had no idea what I was doing. So my stuff is all rapidograph. His stuff is all brush. And like I said, I did maybe half. He did the other half. So it looked horrible together. But I was super excited. I had a comic I could go around and sell to people and stuff. And that really started it for me. So I was telling the story before. So after that, I moved to Maryland for another job. We and it was there was so much work. I mean, I was doing 70 hours a week at this place.
Wow.
So, and then I saw Steve doing his webcomic, and I said, "I've got this Johnny Raygun character. I can do a webcomic. Like, this is great. This is awesome. It's little chunks, it's little bites." I was super inspired with Steve and John Gallagher, and so I started doing Johnny as a webcomic, and that turned into me moving back to New Hampshire, starting to do shows again. And I met this guy who lives in town, Matt Talbot, and we decided to write. He was an inker and a letterer, so I could give him half of the work. We both wrote the thing together, and I think we self-published our first issue, and I think we paid like probably $4 a copy for the issues, and sold them for $3.50 because we were geniuses. And little did we know, at the show, we were at this Boston show selling this book. Our local comic shop was set up there. He was paying people to come over and buy it from us because he didn't want us. He didn't want us to just be blown out and like sitting there and not selling anything. And so I don't know how many people he sent over, but
it's amazing.
We did almost sell out, and we came to him at the end of the show and like, Ralph, look, we're almost sold out. This is awesome. And then Ralph said, well, you know what? If you guys will do the work, I will publish the book for you. And he probably thought we would never do the work. So he probably thought it was a pretty safe bet to just to say that.
He probably told 100 cartoonists that, never had to pay a dime.
Exactly. But we did the work. We did like 8 issues of Johnny Raygun and put him into serious debt. And but we learned a lot through all that, doing the self-publishing thing. You learn how to letter, you learn how to color, you learn how to do all the stuff that you have to do, out of necessity.
The typography, the layout.
Oh yeah.
What year was that?
Yeah.
That was 2003 to 2006 ish.
Wow.
Mm.
And the greatest thing was my buddy Matt, who I worked on that with. He's a designer too. But I learned so much design stuff from him, and I learned how to letter properly from him because I was doing it, the goofball way, like you teach yourself. And he's like, no. There's a lot of art to this that you're not getting. And he explained all that to me. So yeah, I think, and you guys know this, like self-publishing and doing your creator-owned stuff, you learn a ton because you have to do everything.
My favorite part of that is when you learn when you burn money.
Yeah.
When the books come back for the printer, you're like, this is all wrong, and then they tell you that it was your fault because you didn't put the files the right way.
The plates are reversed. It looks like a negative.
Yep. Oh, you sent me the low res version of that?
Yeah, you sent me the 72 16.17 inches and 72 DPI.
Yeah.
So fuzzy.
Your cover looks like Minecraft.
I've got a trade cover that is still like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were so many comics from that period where clearly the original art wasn't comic shaped.
Right.
Stuff just poking a little bit on the edge of the page, or
absolutely. Yeah.
Go ahead, Micah.
I was going to say that there was not one source of information back then that was like, this is how you publish a comic book. It's this size. It's lettering should be this big. This is how the amount of space you need around a balloon. This is how you draw a tail or a pointer, however you want to call it. There was a lot of stuff like that. There was stuff on cartooning,
right,
but not on production and what was needed and how to talk to a printer and how to say, I want this kind of paper, or I want saddle stitched, or I want perfect binding. Stuff that like 99% of people who self-publish have no idea. I got that from working in a small ad agency and actually printing as a teenager. So I knew those terms. Yeah. So I knew how to talk to the printer because I had already been printing. But most guys who draw comics never did that. So you didn't know what you didn't know.
Yes, exactly. You don't know what you don't know until you have to face that reality.
Wait, well, this paper is supposed to be 100 pounds. I don't understand.
Right.
I can't afford that.
And you don't know to ask for a proof.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know to ask for a proof, and if the proof comes and it's all screwed up, then you got to pay to make it. If it's on them, they pay. If it's on you, you pay.
100%. 100%. The proof is the most important thing. Absolutely.
We've triggered the chat. There's a bunch of pros in the chat like
proof. What do you mean proof?
Yeah, that's a really hard lesson, but it sharpens your sword, right? It's just
you don't screw that up twice.
No, no, you don't.
Are those Johnny Raygun stories available anywhere now? Can people get a collection from you?
You know what? I just moved my store on my website. I don't know if I have them up there or not, but I probably should have them up there. I bring them to shows sometimes, and I'm slowly going through and coloring everything. I've got like 500 pages of it, so that's a very slow process. I want to put together a trade at some point, but I think I have like three issues fully colored.
Wow.
So
hopefully someday.
Tell us a little bit about kind of like what happened after that, and like because you've been in the mix for a long time.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, so I know that you're known for certain things, like there's kind of like these almost like raised pieces of earth on all of our timelines. Like, oh, you did this. Oh, you did that too. Exactly. But there's like a lot of shit in between that people don't know about. So kind of like, how did your momentum keep going over the years?
That was because I've always had the day job, mostly working, at a design agency kind of situation. Comics have always been after hours for me, and like kind of chasing that dream. Mm-hmm. And so while Matt and I were doing Johnny Raygun, he had done a pinup for Savage Dragon. Mm-hmm. He kind of had an in with Eric, and so we had met Eric at Chicago, and Eric used to, I don't know if he still does, like he used to kind of hold court with fans. He wouldn't hang out with the other creators. He would hang out with his fans, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. And so Matt and I like sat down and we talked to Eric until like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, like in a hotel lobby. And it was, we're talking about Kirby and everything, influences, blah, 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 what he's doing on Dragon Necks and stuff. And we convinced.
Was he kind of like,
no, he was pretty awesome about it. Like, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, I'm sorry if we're bugging you. No, I love this. And he's a West Coast guy, so I think 3 o'clock in the morning wasn't so bad.
Right.
But we convinced him to let us do some backup stories and pinups for Savage Dragon. So that got us a little more, experience, doing stuff. Because everything we were doing for Johnny was black and white. So we get to do something for color and image. And through doing that, you probably can't do it as much now, but back then you could just reach out to a creator and be like I did with Steve. I was like, hey, Steve, can I do a pinup for your book? And like we did that with Kirkman. So I've got a pinup in Invincible like 11 or something. I don't remember what it is. But yeah, we would just reach out to any book we were reading. We'd reach out, especially image guys. We would reach out to them and say, "Hey, would you mind if we did a pinup for your book?" And almost every single time it worked. And that kind of kept us going. I had a wall that was every comic that I had done. I start putting it up on the wall, and that was cool for me, and my kids love that. Dad, when are you gonna have a new issue out? I don't know. And then we bought a house. Matt bought a house at the same time, and our publisher lost his day job. So that kind of put an end to Johnny. Like we were gonna say, okay, what are we gonna do next for Johnny Raygun? And we were at a good point where we had wrapped up a big story arc and everything. And we had talked to Eric, and Eric was going to let us do Johnny Raygun Savage Dragon team up. And so we had started that. It was like a 50-page thing. I think I got through 40 pages of it when we had to buy a house, and then it's like real life bills start piling on, and
comic bills are different.
And then you got to do freelance for money instead of the little bit that we were making off Johnny Raygun.
Right.
And so we kind of put that to the side. And then I did little things, like I did a zombie anthology called Zombie Bomb with a buddy of mine, Adam Miller. And then I did a bunch of little things with like Craig Russo and Todd DeZago, Perhapanauts backup stories and pinups and stuff like that. And those and Todd and Craig are probably the first professionals that I really started hanging with. Yeah. And yeah, for some reason they were really nice to me. It was one of those things with Craig. I always felt like I was bugging him. Mm-hmm. And so I would always hit him up like, hey, you got a minute to chat? And then we would chat for a little bit and then go off. But like now, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, we're talking all freaking day.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. But yeah, like those guys were the first guys that I started hanging out with professionally. And I learned a lot from them, just like how to act more like a professional. Because I was, like I said, I was hitting up guys. Oh, you've got an image book? Hey, I like your book. Do you mind if I do it was that kind of, wasn't exactly the most professional way to go about things. So, yeah. So that kind of led into that. And that's how I met you, Jamar, at the infamous breakfast with the dancer. I know that's.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Is that where we met? That's wild. We were at
the Mike breakfast. It was like the first Mike breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll set this up real quick. So when Michael Rango passed, and it hit everybody really hard, and we were kind of like, what are we going to do? So I kind of started this whole idea of like, well, let's get together at Baltimore on like Sunday morning, and we'll have the Brotherhood of Mike breakfast. So that was the bomb breakfast. And I've met the whole gang of people. Like either I had known about each other, but probably never met. So, it was a really great thing. And was that? And then right outside the window, there was a completely naked dude.
Yeah. Just
he was butt ass naked. And he was just like, he was just tweaking all over the window. I didn't say twerking. He was tweaking all over the window.
And I looked back, and I was going to tell Craig, like, hide the kids' eyes. And the kids are already, like, hanging up, like, watching.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was... And just to help paint the picture, I don't know if you remember that. He kind of looked like Jeffrey Rush.
He did have a Jeffrey Rush vibe. So.
Nice.
Yeah. But, kind of going into that, not that part. I don't want to go to that, but it's just like the whole idea of having kind of like I get communities like a corny way to say it. You know what I mean? But like there's kind of like another layer to all this besides just do a comic book. It's like it's like a family in a lot of ways, and depending on who your gang of people are, like you always do kind of shows orbiting around each other, or do you kind of do your own thing, and then you might see Todd and Craig and Kemple and all those guys?
I usually see those guys at Baltimore and Heroes, like the whole that whole crew.
Yeah.
And then there's other shows. Doing New England shows, Craig and I are running into each other all the time.
Yeah.
So that's always nice. But yeah, like doing Rose City or something, it's kind of a whole nother group. I get to see Jeff Parker out there and
Parker.
and stuff like that. So it's you guys know it's kind of a family reunion every time you do a show, and maybe it's a slightly different version of the family at different shows and stuff. But
yeah. So now maybe we could talk a little bit about this, because you're, like we all do in different ways, you're compartmentalizing a bunch of different columns of your life, right? You have like this kind of like, like steady work thing, the comic things that you have spinning, and something you're trying to get to, you can't get to it, and and you're also doing shows at the same time. How much of your maybe like even yearly thought energy is going into making things for the show? Are you just booking the show and going to it and bringing what you have? Like, how are you structuring your conventions?
Yeah, it used to be, I knew, I had things coming out kind of on the regular.
Yeah.
And so I knew, okay, at this show I'm going to have X issue and stuff like that. Now it's a lot slower because I'm doing the freelance thing all year long, and one of the books that I'm working on, the art, I'm writing it and coloring it and lettering it, and the artist is really slow. So, it during the summer he's a pirate, so I got to wait for the pirate to get done with his pirate stuff and before he can kick out some new pages. But and then I'm working slowly on my own stuff, and it's I'm not producing as much as I'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
So now I am trying to say, okay, X show is coming up in the fall. I want to have something for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to, even if it's just printing an ash can or something of like the 10 pages that I could put together, I try to do that.
So,
I think that we're touching on something that we have talked about before on the podcast, which is life interrupts, right? You have that little window of your teen inspiration years.
Yeah.
Then depending upon whether you go to college, don't go to college, you get a job, you don't get a job, you get a job in comics right away, you don't. But once you get in your 20s, what I call the terrible 20s, life becomes more complicated. You buy a house, or you've got kids, girlfriend gets pregnant, you break up and you've got to move, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think people don't really think about it. They sort of think it's like a straight timeline between like, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to put on my show. And the next thing, you're tap dancing with Bing Crosby or something. And it doesn't work straight like that. Right.
Yeah.
And the 20s is a real hard time for people to go from, avocation to vocation, from I'm aspiring, I want to do this, and then the reality also too. Let's say you go to college, you spend the money, you graduate, now you've got debt on top of that, and debt will make you make decisions that you don't want to, but you're forced to.
Yes.
Right? And then how do you manage your muse or your dream and the reality, which is increasingly more difficult with each generation because everything is more expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You look at what you paid for your first apartment, and you look what you pay if you were paying for your first apartment today. Yeah,
it's drastically different. I mean, we're talking like $300-400 versus $2,000 now. Yeah. Crazy.
So I think, when I talk to young cartoonists, I talk to young people, and I talk to young people just about every week, people writing me letters or things like that. When I correspond with people, I'm very well aware of those barriers that they will go through. And you have to sort of try to advise people that, depending upon where you are on your own personal timeline, you might have to make some decisions that you don't really want to, but are sort of necessary to balance being able to still try to achieve your goal.
Yeah.
And no one will tell you that. That's the thing. No one told me any of that. I mean, I realized that since my parents weren't millionaires, I'm paying for everything myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's kind of what happened to me is I by the time I was 21, I had a kid. By the time I was 23, I had 2 kids. And then you got 2 kids, a wife, and you've got to support them. And so I had the golden handcuffs on where I was making really good money doing design work, and got health insurance, got a steady job, got all the good stuff. So I couldn't just drop all that and say, hey, I'm gonna go off and do. I know I'm the one that's getting health insurance for everybody, but I'm gonna go just drop it and do comics.
Right. Yeah.
And
about that. Right.
yeah,
And starting a band.
exactly.
So excited.
I'm
to
going to
hear
do comics that my friend is paying people to come up to a show to
Exactly.
buy copies of.
Yeah. Yeah. That wasn't going to happen. So I knew for me, it was going to be, at least for a long time, it was going to be, you know, kind of on the side after hours, which I always chased that dream, always wanted to, you know, get up to that next level and everything. And the older I get, the more I realize the next level is more on me than achieving like the Marvel or DC work. It's artistically getting to that next level versus you know, the exposure at a Marvel or DC. I'd love the Marvel or DC thing, but you know, I can do my own creator own stuff, and I'm my own boss. I get to do whatever I want.
Well, I think that's an important subject too, because maybe for the current generation, the idea of working for Marvel and DC is not going to return to you what you thought it was when you were younger.
Yes, 100%.
Like when you were buying the Naked Wolverine issue.
Yeah.
The idea of working for Marvel seemed like, oh, that was
Oh yeah,
right. That was
yeah,
ultimate thing, right? And I mean, we were just talking before you went on. You were talking about a possibility of doing something for Marvel, but the rates are now not what a guy with 2 kids needs.
No, not at all. And thankfully, my kids are now old and married and stuff like that. But yeah, I've got a buddy, and I don't want to mention his name because I don't want to get him in trouble. But watching him, he just got his first Marvel gig like 2 years ago, and watching the last 2 years of his life, you know, the constant like, hey, how's it going? I have no idea what I'm working on next. I don't have anything. They're not returning my emails. And then the next time I talk to them, oh, I got this backup, or I got to fill in here. I got a couple covers. And I'm like, that freaks me out, because I at the same time I was going, I can't live like that. I can't live with uncertainty. I've been living with certainty for the last 30 years of my life, career. Like, I can't live with uncertainty, having a family and a house and all that stuff. So yeah, that was scary to me. Like, just watching him kind of make his Marvel, life.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be that if you, for my generation, and maybe a little bit after that, if you got in with a major and you could get on a regular book, and you took whatever regular book you could get, because that was the goal, to get on a regular book, right? It's not like I said I wanted to draw Quasar. He was my favorite character, right? But it was a regular book.
Yeah.
Right? That gained you something within the business that it no longer does.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody talks about that, because the other thing is that if you spend that time on your Johnny Raygun or whatever,
yeah,
that's all you.
Sergeant Werewolf.
Right.
Sergeant Raygun. That's all you. Whatever comes after that, good or bad, that's all you. And you don't have someone who worked with you for 10 years on that suddenly leaving the company, and therefore your history leaves the company.
Right.
So it used to be that of my generation, the only guy I think that I see, from what I see on the internet, because I don't really ever go to the comic book store anymore, is John Romita is the only guy I see in the cage every month swinging the bat. And that's because he's John Romita Jr.
Right. Yeah.
Right? There's like one of him.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So now, if you have your library, you just said you got 500 pages of you that you control.
Yeah.
If they reprint it in Brazil, you're getting $1. But if Marvel reprints my stuff in Brazil, I don't get shit.
Nothing. Yeah. Right.
So there's all these other things that change in the game, and then change in your relationship that you to the game that you have no control over. And you used to trade that off with money or royalties or what we used to think of as a career,
Yeah.
which is not the same now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Bottle of scotch.
Bottle of
Alcoholism.
scotch in the drawer.
Alcoholism. Cirrhosis.
Bitterness, alcoholism.
Cirrhosis of the liver.
Well, Rich, after Johnny Raygun,
Yeah.
I think there was like a period in the last 10 years maybe,
Yeah.
where there was suddenly just an explosion of your work. Like you just came out like a cannon. Was it? I don't know, something. Was there some sort of inflection point or something that?
It was. I mean, it was. So I like I said, I was doing these little things. Craig Russo and I had, and a couple other guys in that group, Rich Case and Kemple and Kelly Yates. We decided we were going to put together. We thought digital comics. We were starting to see them kind of come out more and more. This is a good way for us to in our after hours, because a lot of, I think all of us except for Craig had like regular day jobs, and we thought, oh well, digital comics, it's kind of back to the web comic thing where we can produce it at our own pace. We can put it out a little at a time, like 8-page chapters and stuff like that. And we put together this Artist Alley Comics publishing kind of thing. And Craig and I did a book called Kyra Alien Jungle Girl that was a ton of fun. And I was in the right place at the right time. And I met Mike Richardson and showed him the pages. And he goes, hey, that looks like something that we could print. So a couple months later, it's in Dark Horse Presents. So we that was my first major creator-owned thing that kind of took off a little bit. And then after that, I started doing the Electric Black with my buddy Joe Schmalke, and Electric Black like blew up. So that was with Scout Comics. Scout at the time, their top selling book was like 3,000 copies, right? And when we hit, Electric Black sold like 9,000. So it was like a huge hit for them. And we kind of came to them and said, hey, we'd love to do our own like horror imprint for you guys, like curate our horror imprint. And they said, yeah, go for it. So Joe and I created Black Caravan, and we were the editors and publishers, and we did all that stuff and curated a really, really cool line, and sold a ton of books. And through that, I didn't want it to be the Rich Woodall or Joe Schmalke show. Like, we wanted to spread it out, but it ended up we ended up doing a lot of stuff. You know, the colorist for this cover didn't come in, we got to color it. You know, there's no letterer for that book, you got to letter that book. And so I did Sergeant Werewolf through there. And I did another book called Gods of Brutality, which is with the guy who is a pirate during the summer.
Can you explain that to me for a second?
So he lives
pirate.
He lives on Lake Erie, and there is a pirate ship, and I guess they take people out for like a 3-hour tour or something. And he's
what could go wrong? Yeah,
what could go wrong? And he's a pirate on the ship, and like makes fun of people, I guess, and
excellent
swings from ropes and stuff. So he does that through the summer, the summer months.
He's a fair weather pirate.
He is a fair weather pirate. Yeah.
I had to ask because I'm sure that we're all going to be like later on tonight. You didn't say pirate, did I?
Yeah, he just floated that in, didn't you?
All right.
And you're paying. You're not being paid for that. You're having to do that, and you get paid
on the back end.
Right.
Yes, but the greatest thing was, like I said, we were crushing it with numbers for an indie comic. We were crushing it. We had, and the way that we had, like, Joe and I structured it so Scout was getting 25%, Black Caravan was getting 25%, and the creators were getting 50%. And we had creators that were making 20 grand off of one issue because of our sales. And that was I mean, that felt good for all of us.
That's great.
So
And what year was this?
this was
recent.
this was like 2019 to 2021 ish. Somewhere, yeah, about it was like right when COVID hit. And that might have been part of the magic. Like everybody was trying to drown their sorrows in comics or something. But
was horror something you always wanted to do?
Yeah, I've always liked horror stuff. Those are my two big loves, is horror and like Kirby comics. Like, and if I could, and that's kind of the thing I'm doing right now. Space Frankenstein is Angry is like the perfect combination of Kirby meets horror. But yeah, the horror thing just came naturally. And Joe Schmalke, he's a giant horror fan. Like and it was interesting because he's more modern horror slasher stuff, and I'm more universal monsters. So us kind of working together on that made an interesting dynamic in kind of what we were looking for. Because you as publishers, you have 100 people submitting ideas and wanting to be published and stuff, and you got to curate it and figure out what you think will sell. And that was another thing. As publisher, I kind of have to put my likes and dislikes aside, and I have to go, okay, I don't get that comic, but I get that people might like it and it would sell. And it's like, it may not be for me, but I can see the potential in it, and I can see that it could sell. And we had yes, he's very angry. But yeah, that was kind of a neat thing that we had to kind of put our own egos to the side and publish some stuff that maybe we weren't 100% like comfortable. Like we didn't want to read it necessarily, but we could see that.
Did you enjoy that part of the publishing? That I mean, it's not drawing. It's not like your own thing. But did you enjoy like?
I did. I love making spreadsheets and admin stuff.
Did you really?
Oh man, absolutely. Administrative stuff, like yeah.
It's a secret party. The power.
Yeah. Well,
it's a superpower. Yeah.
Right. Well, all my years doing web design and stuff and wrangling clients and all that, it really kind of came back and it paid off where, I had to do all that organization stuff, running projects. We work for Walmart or CVS or, you have to do stuff for them, and everything has to be very, business.
It has to be business, right?
Yes, it's business. And so all that got to come through dealing with comics, and it was awesome. I loved it.
That's great.
Let me ask you a question real quick, Rich, about this, because, and I agree with Steve, like, because, we've been buddies for a long time, but all of a sudden your name was everywhere. And I think I probably hit you up. I was like, yo, you're killing it right now. And you're like, can't talk, counting money. No, you didn't do that. But so,
Got the machine.
the Scarface counter.
Exactly.
So this is kind of like a personnel question. When you guys started popping, and as connected as you are in the business, did you have to go looking for people for the imprint, or did they start bum rushing you? Because I'm sure you got a bunch of emails like, yo, Rich, look at me. Yo, remember me? How did you handle that?
Yeah, it was great, and it was bad, because sometimes you got to tell your friends, like, it's not a good fit for us,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when, you kind of, again, you have to step back, and you're like, all right, this is my friend. I love him. I love his work, but it's not a good fit for this imprint or whatever. And, but yeah, we had so many, people submitting to us, and we, you go around we would walk around shows a lot more and kind of check out what people had maybe already published or Kickstarters that were going on, and like, hey, I know you're doing this as a Kickstarter, but would you be interested in, having it, nationally distributed through this way? So, Yeah, it was a little bit of both, but we had a lot of we had stuff from Australia. Can I curse a little bit?
You can work, Lou. Yeah.
Okay. This is the strangest. We did not pick up this book, and I haven't seen it since. There was somebody submitted a book called Shark Tits to us, and it was exactly what you could imagine.
I can imagine 2 variations of that.
Okay, it was the one with the human.
There you go.
Yes. So yeah, we had some, and she had sharks.
Sure.
Wait a minute. It's not like straight shocks.
There's 2 different ways of going with that. Yeah.
Street shocks on the Bobby with tits.
Yeah. But it was
Good night, everybody.
Yeah. We had interesting stuff like that come through, and
So and you were like, we can't do this, or
we were not gonna. We tried to stay away from that. That felt like it was one. It wasn't. It was a little crudely drawn, like crudely drawn.
a smidge.
It wasn't quite up to like the quality of art we were looking for.
It was like the Beavis and Butthead level of
A little bit better than that, but it was pretty close. Yeah.
Wrong concept.
What if it was like drawn like Richard Corbin? Beautifully.
I mean,
right?
I think we would have been a little more open to that.
That's like a Kickstarter waiting to happen.
Yeah. It's probably out there somewhere because they
the
have
fetish line, the new
Yes.
fetish line
exactly.
of animal chimera.
Yes,
You're onto something. Yeah, that's wild. So, and also this is another thing, and this I wish I had a picture of this. Rich was the first person, because you do a lot of shows, right?
Sure.
I think we always kind of undersell how important comic conventioneering is to how all this stuff works nowadays. And you were the first person I saw that has a new type of banner.
Oh yeah.
Every time I walk by your table, I go, "Holy shit, Rich! Where'd you get that?"
Yeah.
And Rich's banner isn't like the regular verticals. It's leave it up to Matt for that. Yeah,
It's perfect. I don't.
Yeah.
If we'd had that tagline, we would have picked up the book. That's all it needed.
You just needed Matt Rigo's touch on that. Is your banner isn't behind your booth? It's attached to the table, and it goes up like almost like a billboard.
Like a billboard. Yeah. We so a guy that I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, Ben Bishop, who has done a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stuff. He's got a studio in Maine, about an hour from here, and it's next to my buddy Joe's studio in Maine. And Ben was the first one that we saw get the banner, and when he got it, we were all like, "Oh my god!" Like, you don't have it behind you, and it's not, you've got more than a foot worth of seat space behind you, and you're not butting up against the guy behind you that has the banner and everything. And at first I was kind of skeptical because it sits dead in the middle of your table. It's just a big pole, and I was like, this is going to be weird trying to talk around it and stuff. But after I got one, I figured out I just shift over to the side. I've got stuff over here. I've got my area, right? But yeah, it's a great banner, and it gets compact down.
Does it work on every convention table? I mean, some of them are like
paper thin,
old planks of wood on a sawhorse.
It's it does. It works really, really well. Also, you can use it as a banner behind you if you absolutely need to.
Cool.
But yeah, I was doing the regular banner that we all have, right? The one that comes up for years. But once I got that, and it's great. The rig, like I said, it compacts down really well, and you can swap out. It's just like canvas or whatever material with a bunch of grommets in it, and you can swap that out. I think I've swapped it out twice now. You sign them, you sell it off, you pay for your next banner.
That's great.
Well, and the only reason I brought that up is that there was a point where like no one had a banner. Now you can't go to the show unless you have a banner.
Right.
Now
Yeah.
it's like, how can I stick out from all these colorful banners?
Yeah.
Go high, right?
Go high, and you can see it from across the room. Like it's great. Anytime I'm talking to a buddy at another table, where are you sitting? Oh, it's see the banner over there. Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah, he's right over there.
We haven't touched on the other part of self-publishing, which is the distribution part, which is, as we all know, radically changing, and it seems like the death throw of Diamond will never be over. But
Right.
so, how do you, as independent publishers, surf? Who do you decide? Are you going to try to partner up with to get your books out? Because if it's on the web, it doesn't matter. You don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I thankfully so far I haven't had to make that decision. I do. My buddy Joe, after we shut down Black Caravan, he started his own publishing company, and right now he's with both Diamond and Lunar through the Massive that's doing the indie stuff. So I think it's Massive Comics has kind of they've worked out a deal with Lunar where if you're an indie publisher, you can go through Massive and get distribution through Lunar in that way. And I think
so. Now is that a double bite? How does that work?
It is a double bite. Yeah. They take a percentage. I'm not sure what the percentage is, but yeah, they take their cut too. So you're already. I don't know if it's. I don't know what the Lunar cut is, but I know they're taking another bite out of it. So yeah, you're getting hit twice, and as an indie, that's rough because as we all know, like if you're making $1,000 off of an indie book, you're through the door, especially issue 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Right.
Like you're kind of lucky. But
so, what if somebody is watching us and thinking, okay, I want to try this. What is the discount that they do at Lunar?
At Lunar, I'm not sure. I know it's comparable to what Diamond was doing, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. I know for my next project, I'm going to focus on Kickstarter at first, and then maybe once I have the printed books, I'll take them and throw them at print publishers, kind of like I did with Kyra. We had something that we could physically show and then start kind of taking that around. So I think that's the approach I'm gonna take on the next couple projects.
Just because of the churn in the distribution and things.
Yeah. I think going anytime we can go directly to the fans, I think it again that's money directly into my pocket versus, like you said, like everybody taking their own bite and it kind of
and there's a maximum price point in a direct market situation that a retailer wants to see. It's got to be worth it for them to put on the shelves. They've got to make enough of a cut to bump a Marvel or DC book out of the way to put your book in there.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing, right? So through my entire career, I've been trying to be friendly with retailers because ultimately they're the ones that are going to pick up your book, right? And right now, retailers, especially with the distribution being in chaos, like they have X amount of dollars that they set aside for indie books. 90% of it goes to Marvel and DC and Image, I guess. Dark Horse, Mad Cave, whatever it is, and then they've got that $30. $30 a month or whatever that they're willing to spend on a book that is won by a creator that most people probably haven't heard of. It's a new title that most people haven't heard of by an indie publisher that nobody's heard of.
Who in all likelihood won't be in business in a year.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, will issue 3 ever come out of this thing?
Right.
So So I mean, anytime a retailer takes a chance on an indie, like a super indie guy, you know, it's a special thing. But I think building those relationships with the retailers is really, really important. And I mean, when I was starting out, I would show up to conventions. Like we had this little tiny convention in Boston, but it was every month, and I would show up like an hour early, and I would help retailers like bring in their boxes, you know, because I want to do all of it. I want to know every aspect of comics, and just doing that helped me build relationships with a lot of guys that once I was, you know, co-publisher of Black Caravan, I can go to those guys and they're buying extra because they know me, you know, and that was, you know, building relationships like that, and then giving them incentive to buy our books because it's somebody that they know. They're more willing to push it to their customers because they're like, oh, well, I know this guy and he's really good and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, if you can get the retailer on your side, then you know, that's half the battle for an indie guy. That's awesome.
How you doing on time, Rich? We can start wrapping it up.
I'm good. When like I said, I could stay here till midnight, but I know you gotta walk the dog.
I gotta walk the poodle. You know how this works. well, you know, I think we have a little bit more time to kick it if you're okay.
Absolutely.
I'm very curious, and this is why I love that there's 3 hosts. Like we're just kind of like doing this kind of prior cycle question and answer with you. I'm really curious about that part where you have people pinging you for some sort of opportunity, right? And now that you're not doing that anymore, you don't probably hear from those people anymore, do you?
No, I'm trying to think of if I hear from anybody that we were publishing, and really there's maybe like 2 people that I'm still hearing from that, because I get it. I'm not useful for them anymore. The end of Black Caravan was not the most happy of things.
Sure.
So you know, I've reached out and talked to a lot of them, and you know, at least they said there's no hard feelings on how a lot of that ended. But yeah, they, you know, we all go through cycles where we're talking to people. A lot of us are really busy. So when we're talking to people, a lot of it's about business.
Yeah.
You know, unless we're in a friendly situation where we're seeing each other at cons. I mean, as much as I love all of you guys, like we don't get to chat as much as we'd like to.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like that pretty much dry. You know, I don't talk to a lot of those people. Just like I don't talk to anybody that I work with at Dark Horse when, you know, after Cairo was done there.
Right.
So
yeah, just kind of the reason I asked that is because, you know, just even for my own self, just kind of like, you know, we're like sharks, Rich.
Yeah.
Like we don't sleep.
Swimming. If you stop swimming, you die.
You die, right? And I know that, you know, like say if I wind up in a new body of water, all of a sudden there are people that are very interested in contacting me, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you don't hear from them again if whatever you did doesn't suit them, or you can't.
Actors say that too. That like when you're acting, you're like a family, and then you're like not.
Right.
Then you might not ever see that person again. You might bump into them at a festival or something, you know.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny when you set up at shows and you like my buddy Adam Miller that I did Zombie Bomb with. We set up at shows and we did 6 issues of Zombie Bomb. We were doing shows for a good 2 years, you know, setting up at least 4 or 5 times a year. And now we run into each other every once in a while, catch up, talk about the good old days, stuff like that. But yeah, it's funny. It kind of goes in weird cycles and stuff where, unless you're really talking to them on a regular basis, it kind of, you know, sometimes things fall to the side.
I guess I just brought it up because I know, like, when you're younger at this and you're finally in this pool where people that are doing what you want to do, and sometimes those relationships get really tight, and then sometimes you get your feelings hurt.
Yeah.
Because because you were just like maybe expected way too much from a comic book creator relationship.
Absolutely.
Right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, so this was I don't think I've ever told this story public. I've bitched about it in private. Fear Agent, Rick Remender.
Mm-hmm.
We did a pinup for. He was one of the guys that was nice enough to let us do a pinup for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do a pinup for him, and then he contacts us, my buddy Matt Talbot and I, and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing these Tales of Fear Agent. Do you guys want to do a story?" We're like, "Yeah, oh my God, yes, absolutely, 100%. Here's another opportunity for us to do, get a spotlight on us on a book from Image. It was a hot book at the time.
Yeah.
So we pitch him a bunch of stories. He picks one. We draw it. We hired a colorist. Guy, now I don't remember who did it, but it did a beautiful job on it. Super professional, probably the best I'd ever looked. We send it to Rick, and he goes, "Okay, it'll be in the next issue." You go to the comic shop, pick up the next issue, it's not there. Like, oh, that sucks. So, hit up Rick, like, "Hey, oh no, it'll be in the next issue." And this happened for there was a period where it was an Image, and then it went to Dark Horse.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Oh, well, you know what? It'll be in the Dark Horse issues." And it kind of got kicked down the line for a long time, and it never happened.
Mm.
Right. But it was one of those things where I held on to a lot of anger over that because I didn't know, I'm a kid, I was expecting something. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
I think that happens to, now I can look back at it and say, all right, this is something that happens in comics. Sometimes you do a story that doesn't go anywhere, or sometimes you do a pinup that, doesn't go anywhere, or cover or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of part of the process and part of the learning and growing.
Yeah.
Marvel and DC used to have drawers full of inventory stories.
Yeah.
That they had commissioned from people or gotten people to do that were never were never inked, never finished. I forget. Somebody told me. It might have been Brad or somebody else or Carl Potts. They had tons of stuff, that they used to like, oh, hey, somebody would go up and, work out I need $500, and they would give them an inventory story. And there used to be a point at which they would have inventory stories in case somebody screwed the pooch and they need here's a Spider-Man annual and we're 8 pages short.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff over the course of your career, if you're at all actually a successful working cartoonist, you're gonna get fucked a few times.
Yeah.
It's just gonna happen. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen. People have the best intentions. Somebody asked me that the other day, yesterday or day before, if I had ever had. So somebody actually wrote me a letter. Somebody wrote me a letter
on paper.
Oh no, not Ken Burns, dear Mr. Manley,
dearest Michael Manley.
Yeah, right. I'm writing you to ask your humble opinion. But this person was going through some stuff and was asking for some perspective, my take on things. And I said, but that was part of the reply was that if you're in the business long enough, it happens, right? Nobody wants it to happen. You try to dance around it, but eventually, boob shark gets you.
Right.
Boob shark gets you. You can't avoid it. People go into things with the best of intentions. I clearly, I remember that Martians Go Home thing with that publisher. You know,
Yeah.
everything was going good until I got the check, and then the check bounced.
Oh,
He found out that all of his checks are bouncing because Bank of America canceled his line of credit.
oh,
Didn't tell him.
oh.
He wrote all. So the way it worked was he had a line of credit. He'd spend the line of credit to get his products made, and then he'd get paid, and then he'd pay off his line of credit, use it again. So it was going like that, right? Back and forth. Except he spent it, and Bank of America canceled it. This is going back, I think it might have been right around the fallout from the 2008 thing.
Yeah.
Right. So that was over 10 grand in
Oof.
the hole.
Oh,
Right.
oh man.
I know other friends of mine who lost twice that amount of money because once somebody would fall behind,
Yeah.
right? Well, turn in the next issue.
Yeah.
And so my rule became you'll get one issue,
Yeah.
you'll get two,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, I mean, that's just part of the business. And I'm sure in the case of somebody like Rick, who's a stand-up guy,
Yeah.
you know, there's things beyond his control because he's not the publisher.
Exactly. Yeah, especially when it went to Dark Horse. Then, you know, who knows? Yeah.
All
And
right.
people always want to assume that people are doing it for, you know,
Right. Trying to keep the man down.
right. But that's usually that's really not the
Yeah.
that's usually not the case. But
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe if there's ever an omnibus, we'll
Right. Well, it could be one of those things. So I had done a pinup for Mike Allred's Madman, and I sent it to Mike and never knew where it was going to show up. And I'd forgotten about it. And then I had somebody come up and it was one of those giant like tomes. And the guy puts it down. And he goes, "Hey, would you sign this for me?" And I was like, I didn't do anything in there. He's like, "Oh no, you're right here on page like 32." And there's my pinup. I'm like, "Oh, now I got to go out and I got to find one of these." But yeah, you never know if this thing's going to pop up somewhere in the future. And
Very true. That's
you
very
have no
true.
idea.
I think you really said something poignant there, Rich, about just kind of putting things into perspective and putting them into place and just kind of like taking some pressure off of the situation.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So you're looking to aim more at Kickstarter than to go direct to your base of fans.
Yeah. I think so. At least initially. I mean, the last couple of Kickstarters I've done, I print enough that I'm pretty much set for the next 5-10 years worth of trades for like Gods of Brutality. I've got several hundred, maybe 1,000 copies of that as trade. So I'll be able to go to shows. I probably sell like 3 or 4 copies of the trade every show, depending on how big the show is. So I know that's gonna be there for a while. So the Kickstarter, you know, if I make a little money, awesome. But it's more for the longevity of having material on my table. Which I'm also actually, I got a question for you guys. So I'm at a weird spot where I've done Electric Black and 10 different projects, and then my table from the outside must look like a flea market or something.
You're
Because
a retailer.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't necessarily, because you guys probably, well, like Jamar, you've got Leon, right? And it's
That's
like
it.
people know what
That's
to come
it.
to you for.
Right.
And I feel weird. Like, I don't know if I'm doing myself a disservice spreading it, because I've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle covers that I've done.
Yep.
I've got my creator owned stuff that I've done. I don't know if that's a good. What's your opinion on either Focus or Shatterscott shot?
I like. I can't get Boob Shark out of my head, so I'm a little distracted.
If I can find the pitch, I'll send it to you guys.
I think you should bring whatever you think will sell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my.
But it's different at every show because
right.
I know that from talking to Liang now, who does all these different shows.
Yeah.
One show, this one thing,
Tom.
people just want sell out. Next show, crickets. Nobody will buy that. You go to one show, everybody's got money. Next show you go, nobody's got.
Yeah.
Nobody's got money. You know.
I will say I used to keep a spreadsheet again that would list like, you know, Philly, Wizard World Philly. I sold X amount of prints, I sold X amount of issues, blah blah blah. Like it was a good print show. So the next year I would go, I would load up on prints at that show. And that helped for a while, but like last year I did Awesome Con and I ate shit. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. This year I did it. It was fantastic. One of my best shows. So I don't understand. I didn't have anything really different this year than I did last year. So it did, like, logic wise, it didn't make any sense.
I find that having a table that has a single image, because if people are going by at a clip and we're pitching, we basically have to introduce people to we have to assume people who know our stuff, they're going to find us. So that's we're not really aiming our table at them. It's for the people who are going by and, you know, catch their eye for a second.
Right. The one thing. Yeah.
And I feel like whatever the big thing for you is right now, that should be front and center. And then that's what I do. I bring AST, I bring Astounding Space Thrills, I bring the Star Trek stuff, I bring little covers, but that's over in a standee on the side. The table is the Middle Age and the D&D stuff, but that's of a kind.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I stopped taking almost everything except a couple of issues of draw and I mean like a couple, like 5.
Yeah.
I took my sketchbook and I took art, but I haven't even been doing. I only did one show in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But what I found is that it's easier for me to sell my art from home rather than to haul it and then have to worry about managing it and keeping it so somebody doesn't try to steal it.
Yeah.
And everybody else has got everything that, you know, if we're gonna buy draw, you already got it.
Right.
You're not going to buy it at a show. So usually what I ended up doing was giving a fair amount of those copies away to, you know, perspiring young artists, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you're selling, what are you selling? Are you selling you? Are you selling your books? You guys have 5 different things. Like, I think Steve is right. I think the thing that's the freshest is what people would probably be. Yeah. And then over the course of years, no one's going to want to buy an Action Planet comic now. So if I took them, I'm not going to sell them. I'm just going to be hauling them back and forth to the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I'm at the point now, if I don't have someone going to the show and working my table, I don't want to haul all that shit.
It's a lot of stuff.
Because, you know, I'm going to make most of my money.
Yeah.
Drawing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to make $100 selling anything that I printed ever. Yeah. It's not going to happen now. Maybe if I did a brand new book and I did a Kickstarter, maybe, but I know I'm not going to sell 100 copies of it at a show.
Right.
Right. I'm going to sell 20, maybe 30, maybe.
Right.
Unless I was making some con exclusive and then I'd have to promote it or whatever. Yeah. I make my money drawing. My fans want a drawing.
Yeah.
A signature or a drawing. So to me, what you have to do is you have to figure out really, and you have to be kind of brutal about it. What do your fans want from you? Yeah. Right. And I know we think it used to be, oh, you know, you take all your stuff and you're like a store. You want this, you want this, you want this, you want this. Yeah. You know, am I going to take flabbed comics from my comps, you know, get them graded? God, I don't want to do that. I mean, I suppose it's what you want to do, right? Do you want to have 50 copies of this? Then if you're drawing, right? Because most of my time is either spent signing something or drawing or trying to draw something, but then having to stop. But then if I gotta sell some artwork or I gotta sell a book and then put that in the bag, oh, will you autograph it for me? Then it's like, I'm not going to be able to draw. I'm going to go
Right.
back to my hotel room at night.
Yep. Yeah. You can't get into that groove.
Right. So I'm going to go back to my hotel at night and draw.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I don't know if I want to. Then that's actually working harder at the show,
It is.
right? Than it is here working. So
Absolutely.
everybody, I think it seems like the most. You don't see John Romita doing that, or
Right.
Mike Mignola, or people like that. They sign stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe they have art, but a lot of those guys don't take art. They have
Right.
their agent
Right.
selling their art.
Yeah.
So they're not splitting. They're just signing. Right?
Yeah.
You're just signing. Right. Maybe a panel or something.
Right.
So I think you have to. It's different for everybody, but I think you have to be kind of. It would be better to say, "Oh, I wish I had that.
Right.
I didn't bring it with me." If you say that 50 times, the next show
Yeah.
you could take stuff.
Right. That makes sense.
all right, you guys. I don't know how this happened, but now we got to hit lightning round.
Oh, I thought you were going to say we got to hit P break.
Oh, a bunch of questions flooded in for Rich, and so Rich, this is a part of the show, and thanks, Mike and Rich. That was a really great topic we talked about. We have a bunch of questions front loaded. Stone Cold is going to read them to you, and Rich, you're going to
come off the ropes with questions.
Rich is going to give us quick, concise answers.
Yeah, we
Cut your
got
forehead with a razor, Rich.
we got 8 minutes and 8 questions. Let's see what we got here.
Got it.
I have no idea the context of this. JRD on the YouTube. Hello, JRD. Hey, Rich, how are you coming along drawing livestock?
Horrible. He wants me to draw shakes a lot, and I'm getting older and more picky about my commissions, and I'm not good at drawing cartoon things. So, next question.
Thanks for the question. Michael DeFonte on the YouTube's asks, this channel is part of my education on cartooning. Well, that's just nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Michael.
Well, that's
Thanks,
awesome.
Michael.
Congrats.
Making sure. Okay, Christopher Lopez. Do any of you think, as an indie creator, and I think it's a comic book creator, is it better to put out a complete story in trade paperback graphic novel format instead of monthly floppies? And there's a second part to this, I believe. So the retailer and buyers won't feel trepidation of investing in a new imprint.
Ooh.
Yeah, my personal opinion, coming from the publishing side of it, is again, retailers only have X amount of dollars they're gonna put aside for an indie book. So if you've got a $20 trade, whatever that translates into for the retailer to put their money down on, say it's $8 they have to do, I think they're less likely to put down. They might buy one copy, but they're not going to buy 10 copies of your trade, whereas they may buy 5 copies of your floppy.
Right.
But again, it's kind of a weird thing where you don't know. Retailers might not want to take a chance on a floppy from a new publisher and things like that. Again, Kickstarter, I think, is some sort of crowdfunding might be the way to, if you want to put out a graphic novel, like, then you have everything, and nobody cares about popping down $20 on a Kickstarter.
Yep. I'd co-sign that.
Yeah, I also think that the current model for the direct market is floppies, trade, right? But if you're going outside of the direct market,
Yeah,
with Scholastic or any of the publishers that are publishing, they only do trades. So
Right.
it seems to me, it's if you're in the direct market, you do the floppies to collect.
yeah,
I mean, that's Images. That's Marvel. That's their whole model. We put out the floppies, hope we don't lose money on the floppy.
Yeah.
Then collect it, and we make our money
yeah,
off the trade.
Yep.
But if you're doing a YA book, then you're not doing Dogman doesn't do floppies.
right, totally.
Lightning. That was a speedy, lightning, perfect answer. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Christopher Lopez, for the question. Make sure clickety. Jeff Yoon on the YouTube. Rich, would you recommend self-publishing for first-time creators or shopping around for a publisher?
I think self-publishing is a great way to test the waters with anything. We live in a fantastic time where self-publishing means you could do it on the internet. You can do it. You can make 5 copies for yourself and sell them at your local library, whatever you want. Like, I think go self-publishing and then take those copies and you send them to publishers if you want to go down that route.
That's awesome. Thank you for the question, Jeff. Eternity Forever, Zombie Mom and Space Frankenstein crossover. Will you ever do a crossover?
I don't know. I have to talk to my buddy that I'm doing the book with, Tom Snagowski, and since we're just starting, no crossovers yet, but you never know. I've done crossovers in the past and I love them.
That's all. Thank you for the question, Eternity. JRD again. You talked about failing art and sticking with just drawing. Are you using and enjoying any techniques and mediums now that teenage Rich eschewed? I want to say Rich eschewed. Rich, yeah. JRD, you did that to me.
Yeah. I'm not good at painting, but I enjoy paint. I've got a painting right back there. I want to do a set of Sergeant Werewolf, like Mars Attacks cards. So I mean, that's a kind of, I guess, a simple style to paint in. It's it's not as complicated as some of the styles you can paint in. I'm gonna give it a shot and do 1 or 2 cards and see what I can come up with. So yeah, so I'm gonna do that. I love painting, watercolors, acrylics. I love oils, all that stuff. I'm not good at any of them.
And JRD brings us home with, you mentioned the Electric Black period ended awkwardly, but did your time as an editor have any positive impact on you in other ways? For example, your writing or time management?
Great question.
Yeah, that again, that was in the middle of me having a regular 40-hour-a-week day job. So my drive into work, Joe and I would be on the phone for a half hour driving into work, kind of setting up, okay, here's where we are. This is, this stuff is due this week, et cetera, et cetera. And then as soon as I got home, it was doing management stuff and everything. And I will say during work hours, you go to the bathroom with a sticky note, a sticky pad, and you're like writing down notes for what I got to do later. You kind of take advantage of any, lunch breaks. Anytime I could, I would fit work into the work day.
Thank you for the question, JRD. That was lightning round.
I love it. We did it, guys. We did it.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. Rich, this was a fantastic episode. We filled the cup really well tonight, and I'm glad that we brought this perspective. I'm glad you shared your story with us. I love the idea of talking about self-publishing. We don't talk about it enough here. I think we talk a lot about Kickstarters.
Sure.
But it's kind of like almost like jumping over the subject a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not knocking Kickstarters, but it's almost like you have to kind of already know how to do this before you're doing Kickstarters. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There's a lot.
I really appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And if we got nothing from this episode, now we have Boob Shark. So
Shark tits.
Shark tits. Well, let's try to.
I mean, it's a little more.
Yeah. It's a.
But Boob Shark is actually funnier.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the Temu version. That's like the you wanted for Christmas, you wanted shark tits, but you got Boob Shark.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Boob is a funnier word.
It is.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. All right. Well, Rich, we've been putting your URL on the screen all night. Do you have any other places you want us to kind of pitch before we get out of here?
I think that's it. I'm on all the social medias if you guys want to see whatever I'm up to, commissions, the random Space Frankenstein is angry illustration, whatever.
Awesome, thanks. Hang out with us as we close the show out because we got Kirby hands to do it. I got to do some announcements. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us again for another riveting episode, another Pitch Me I Must Be Dreaming episode of Pencil to Pencil. We have some more stuff to tell you about. Let me get my media together. Tomorrow, I will be back here for, you know what it is, Coffee Break with JN at 9 p.m. EST. Come hang out and watch me drink a cup of coffee and run my mouth. Also, I'm kind of like double dipping here. Also on Monday the 19th, I'll be hosting my bi-monthly National Cartoon Society open house.
Ooh.
And I will be doing a studio visit with John Kovaleski, the cartoonist behind the Daddy Days comic strip. That's right, because I have a platform, I can talk about whatever I want. So I'm going to pitch this. So you have to register, go to nationalcartoonist.com/events and sign up and watch us do that. Thank you guys so much. Guys, I would be remiss if we turned this channel off.
Wait, can I add one little plug too?
Yeah, Steve, plug away.
There's a Kickstarter I'm working on right now for a friend of mine and his book. It's a beautiful book. It's called Becoming Frazetta. So it's launching on Monday. If you go to Kickstarter, type in Becoming Frazetta. It's by Michael Finn. It's this gorgeous book about how Frazetta's younger years and how he became, everyone's favorite fantasy illustrator. But just check it out. Sign up for it. It launches on Monday.
I love it, man. I love that we can do whatever we want because this is our platform.
Excuse me, the FCC is going to be here in a moment.
Guys, Benedict Cumberbatch told me we're in the end game. He told me, he whispered in my ear from my astral state. He said, dude, this is it. It's a wrap. So before we go into that cold, dark night, it will be imperative to, come on, Rich, you've been practicing. Wash those Kirby hands. Yeah, good job. Nice flat fingertips. I love it. See you later. Be good.